All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. All right, I've got another good, this is a banger video. You know, the channel's growing awful slow for the quality of videos that I've been putting up lately. So maybe if you guys think this video is good, you could share it with your friends. Do a guy a solid, okay? So what we're gonna talk about today is we're gonna talk about fighters beating other fighters mentally before fights, or maybe that's more kind of like fairy dust written by analysts than actual reality, okay? And I'll tell you why I think that, where that came from, and obviously this is all drawing from the Conor and Dustin fight that's coming up, and the narrative around Conor having beaten Dustin mentally before that fight, and every other fight that Conor's been involved in that somebody got beat mentally, etc. Okay. Anyway, so here's what prompted this video, okay? So I have for a long time thought to myself that the narrative that Conor beat this guy mentally, I think he does get like a little bit of a mental edge, but I think it's very overblown, okay? I think Conor's beating these guys with his skills. And then maybe, you know, he gets a little bit of an edge, like if he makes them a little bit nervous, then maybe they'll do something a little bit slower. But I'll tell you what prompted the video specifically is the Aldo fight, okay? And I'll tell you exactly where this is coming from. So obviously the Aldo fight is the #1 example that everybody just takes for granted, like, okay, yeah, Aldo, perfect example. Hadn't lost for 11 years. You know, he has to go through 2 buildups with Conor. Conor obliterates him psychologically and then he gets knocked out in 15 seconds. Conor beat him mentally. That's what happened, right? Okay, so I was watching a highlight video of Jose Aldo the other day. Aldo, I will acknowledge, even I was very heavily on the side that like Conor just obliterated him mentally and that's what led to that outcome. When I watched his highlight video, they had this clip of him in the first round of the Kenny Florian fight. It's about a minute in, or it's actually inside of the first minute. And he throws the exact combination that he threw at Conor when Conor knocked him out. A running forward, whap, whap. It's very, very, very similar, okay? And I watched that and I was like, wow. Because, you know, the narrative that everybody has told is like, that's not how Jose fought. Jose always would take the first round and measure guys out. He didn't get aggressive like that, certainly not in the first minute. And I saw the Kenny Florian one where he literally did basically the exact same thing. And I was like, dude, did he do this a lot? So I started watching the first round of his fights. Like, so it's true, his very recent fights, right before Conor, there were a couple fights that he was a little bit more measured, like in the first round. But that was like a couple fights. Prior to that, he went bananas in the first round. And he threw combinations just like the one that he threw at Conor. Just like it. Okay, running forward, fake, throw, I mean, literally the exact combination. And Conor knocked him out, okay? So it's cool, yes. Conor did an amazing job in the buildup. He psychologically obliterated Jose Aldo. Okay, but what led to Jose Aldo being unconscious is Conor watching game tape. Conor watching Jose Aldo fight a million times. Literally so many times that he felt like he had fought him 100 times already. So that when Jose Aldo did that move that he's done over and over and over, Conor was waiting for it and he knocked him out with it, okay? And here's the other thing, okay? Now, obviously, prior to that moment, Jose Aldo was considered the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, okay? And some people that are newer to the sport, they don't understand. They just don't, like, most people, I would say, maybe not most, but lots of people, I mean, shit, not you guys, obviously, but lots of new people literally do not understand how, they don't understand. You're like, no. Jose Aldo was basically Khabib level. Like, he hadn't lost in 11 years. He was the only UFC champion at 145 pounds ever, because he was the champion at WEC, and the WEC came with the UFC. He had never lost, as far as anyone was concerned. There were barely even any like close fights, right? He was considered the #1 pound for pound best, and Conor dirt napped him, okay? So that's the point that I'm making, is this. Aldo had never been knocked out cold like that, ever. And guess what? He's lost some fights since then. Can you name one where he got knocked out cold early in a fight? No, you can't, because he hasn't, okay? He got beat by Holloway and by Peter Yan exactly the same way. An accumulation of a ton of punishment over multiple rounds where he ended up wilting and going down like in the 3rd or 4th round, okay? Conor hit him with 1 shot and put him to sleep, okay? So did Conor beat him in the buildup, or did Conor beat him with an absolutely perfectly timed, placed, you know, shot that had titanic power, okay? Like, that's what knocked Jose Aldo out. What, you think no other you think that like it's because no one else like did the psychological warfare that they didn't have the power to knock him unconscious like Conor did? I mean, seriously, like I'm not saying that Conor didn't get a psychological edge on him, but what I'm saying is like the narrative that's like why he beat him is ridiculous and stupid, to be honest. And so you come back to then you go back to the Dustin Poirier fight, right? Same thing, because they show all these sound bites. Like Conor's incredible at giving sound bites where it's funny, it's poignant, it's like, whatever. So that like, then if he wins, people are like, look, he just obliterated this guy, man. He just obliterated him psychologically. He really did, man. Just look at this. But the funny thing is, the only reason that it looks that way is because he won, okay? Like that's the thing. The narrative is written after the fight. It's written after the fight. And the ultimate example of this, of course, is the Khabib and Conor fight. And I'm going to go over that in a second. But think back to the Dustin fight, right? Like, did Conor really, like, you think that like, Dustin fighting mad makes him fight way worse? Like, I mean, that's basically the narrative. Was Conor got in his head and he made him fight angry. And so he fought way worse. Like, so you're telling me that right now, if you got Dustin Poirier angry, where he really didn't like the opponent that he was going to fight against, you're telling me you believe that he would fight worse? I mean, seriously, do you believe that? Because I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all. Okay. I do think that maybe the gravity of being in a main event, he wasn't used to that, maybe. But like, oh, I was mad. I was thinking about him. You're not going to convince me that's a reason that he lost. He lost because Conor's a better fighter than him. He was a better fighter then. He's a better fighter now. And he's an awful matchup for Dustin Poirier. A fucking awful matchup for Dustin Poirier, right? Like for all the reasons that we go, if you want to know why that is, then you can watch the previous video that I put up about that specific issue. But yeah, so listen, like, and all the early guys that Conor fought, like Conor's beating them with skills, man. Like Eddie Alvarez, look at the build up to the Eddie Alvarez fight, right? Even in the Eddie Alvarez fight, people are like, yeah, man, I think Conor just got under his skin. It's like, what? Conor literally surgically annihilated Eddie Alvarez. Like, he got into it's that got him the win. Like, again, I do believe Conor is a psychological tactician. But when there's like, yeah, he beat him mentally. Like the Aldo fight, he beat him mentally. Oh, okay. He knocked him unconscious for the first time ever. Only time ever, okay? You can't talk him unconscious, right? So like but yeah, like the Alvarez fight, Alvarez was not intimidated by Conor. Alvarez was loose. Alvarez was happy. He was good to go. You're not going to tell me that psychologically Alvarez was in a bad spot going into that fight until Conor hit him with the first shot and he felt like he got struck by lightning. And he was like, holy shit. Okay. So again, the whole thing is, but again, now I'm building up to the number one example. Okay. Because this is priceless. And I'm going to be honest with you. I filmed this video already. And then when I got to this part, it was so good that I was like, I got to reshoot this whole thing and lead up to this. But like, it's the Khabib and Conor fight, okay? The first one. So there were so many games played in that lead up. I mean, just absolutely fucking endless, right? You got Conor being insanely disrespectful. Listen, here's the other thing. People do not give credit to Khabib and how much he did to sell that fight and to make that fight happen. Like that's the thing. Khabib has crazy fight game, dude. People don't give him credit for that. They just are, he's just stoic and, he always says what he means. There's no larger strategy back there. Bullshit. And I'm saying that like as a genuine and the deepest compliment I can give to the guy. He has very strong fight game, right? He wins his fight and he's trying to get a title shot. Hey, Ireland, 2 million, Russia, 150 million, or, whatever, like calls him out on the mic. Smart. He finds Artem, grabs him by the neck and punks him on camera. You think that's not calculated? You think he's really mad at Artem because Artem said that Conor's a real champion and Khabib's not? Give me a fucking break. It's strategy. He's baiting Conor into that fight like a smart person. But anyway, so Khabib has those, that's his gamesmanship, Russia 150 million. He goes and, gets Artem. He's talking about Conor everywhere. Conor, attacks the bus. Then they get into this, whole, nasty whatever shit. Like Conor goes over the deep end with being super disrespectful. And Khabib just stays focused, stays calm. Once he had the fight booked, he doesn't need to play the games. He's just like, we're going to do this in October. So the fight plays out. Khabib annihilates Conor, right? Beats the shit out of him. And then the narrative is, oh man, like this was the one time where Conor couldn't get in his head, man. Like every time that Conor tried to get in Khabib's head, you could just see it made him stronger, just made him stronger. Like any other person would have wilted under that pressure, but Khabib, like Khabib is the one that actually got stronger from Conor taunting him, I mean, that's just the way it is, And Conor learned his lesson, didn't he? Like, don't mess with Khabib psychologically. Now, think about what would have happened if Conor would have knocked Khabib out, okay? It would have been literally the exact opposite narrative, okay? Like if Conor knocked him out, okay? So what my point is, Khabib won because of his skills, okay? Khabib won because he's a better fighter than Conor, and he matches up very well against Conor's weaknesses, okay? So, I mean, again, like the narrative that like he beat, there's this big psychological edge in that play, especially in the Conor and Khabib fight. Neither of those guys lost because of a psychological edge, or won because that is just not true. Now, Conor might not have been in a good place mentally. He just fought Mayweather. He's really distracted, whatever. But the build up to that fight, okay, there isn't like a guy who had a mental edge and that led to the outcome of the fight, okay? Khabib had better skills than Conor, period, okay? Period. And if Conor would have knocked Khabib out, guess what the narrative would have been, dude? Okay, so Mix Molly did this brilliant segment in about this actually in particular in his video Humbled. Why Conor needed this loss, which was right after the Conor and Khabib fight, and I believe it's in that video. And he's like he knew that if Conor would have won, then they would have flipped the narrative, and it would have been there was this picture of Khabib when he was on the bus. So Conor, and again, something that no one really acknowledges during this bus incident was Khabib was in the middle of a weight cut, okay? So when Conor stormed this garage with 1 million people, Khabib's there with like 4 guys on his team, max, maybe 3, and he's in the middle of a weight cut, dude. And it's Khabib. You know how hard weight cuts are for this guy? So like he's the most drained, most exhausted. He's also has everything to lose, okay? Like he didn't get off the bus because he's smart, okay? There's 30 guys out there, but I mean, that's irrelevant as far as he's concerned. But he's about to fight. If he goes out there and gets hurt, he can't fight, okay? Conor has nothing to lose. Conor just made $100 million, doesn't even have a fight booked, okay? Khabib has everything to lose. Conor has nothing to lose, so Khabib did the smart thing to stay on the bus, okay? But there is this photograph of him when he's on the bus, and his face looks concerned. Like he looks, I mean, I'm not gonna say he looks scared, but like if you wanted to take that picture and twist it and say, look how scared Khabib was during that thing, right? Okay, this is exactly what he would have said. They would use that picture, and like Mix Molly was like, they would have used that picture that said Conor took his soul in Brooklyn, or took his heart in Brooklyn and took his soul at Madison Square Garden, whatever, right? Like they would use that picture as the example of Conor winning the fight because he broke him psychologically. It would have been like, yo, man, think about it like this, man. Everything that Conor does is he's a psychological tactician, okay? He knew he wouldn't get off the bus. And so by bringing 30 people there, throwing the dolly through the window, what he actually made Khabib do was make a psychological choice to choose not to get off the bus. And so basically what he's doing subliminally is he is submitting to Conor. He's submitting that Conor's the bigger man. So of course, when they get into the octagon, mentally he's already tapped out one time with Conor because he didn't get off the bus. That's all strategy, man. That's the level Conor's operating at, right? Was make him psychologically tap out before the fight. So then when the fight actually happens, he doesn't even know what to do. He's already submitted to this man. Think about it, dude. That's what Conor was doing, okay? That is the kind of shit that people would have said. Straight up. I mean, without a doubt. And they'd be like, you think Conor's really like, Conor's got a problem with Muslims, man? He just knew exactly what buttons to push, man. He knew exactly what buttons to push. Khabib, he's ice cold. He looks like he's ice cold, but Conor was all up under his skin, man. All up under his skin. He just knew what buttons to push, dude. He's a fucking tactician, man. He's a psychological genius. He is an apex predator of psychological warfare. And what would have created that narrative is if Conor's skills ended up being better than Khabib's skills the night of the fight, okay? Like Conor and Khabib, no one's going to get a mental edge, okay? I will tell you that right now. Obviously everyone knows that I think that rematch is coming. And one thing I can tell you for 1,000% sure is not 1 inch of that fight is going to be decided by whoever has a psychological edge in the fucking buildup. Both those guys are bulletproof minds, okay? You're not going to crack those guys mentally. Those guys, you are not going to have any edge psychologically from the buildup. That's not going to happen, okay? It's just not. And in the case of Conor, Okay. Normally you would think like, okay, well, he already lost to Khabib. So, you know, that's a big psychological edge for Khabib. I don't agree when it comes to Conor. Okay. Because Conor, for him, he's fought him, felt his strengths, and he'll adjust. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. Conor will be harder for Khabib to beat this time. That I will fucking guarantee you. Okay. I wouldn't pick Conor to win that fight, but I can absolutely promise you as certain as I've been about anything in the entire world is Conor. Well, first of all, Conor's going to run through Dustin. And then if he fights Khabib, that'll be a much tougher fight for Khabib that time. I would guarantee it. Guarantee it. But yeah, so that's my take on the psychological warfare stuff, because I've always just thought it was kind of ridiculous. Although I do love it, you know, I love watching guys try to get, you know, mind fucked. But you always know in the back of your mind, okay, what's going to decide this fight is who is a better fighter. Okay, just plain and simple. Anyway, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Love you guys. Peace.